Despite having the least heroes in their role, supports have the most impactful ultimates in the game by far, and a lot of them charge really fast when there's a lot of healing to be done. Let's get into the best ways to use every support ultimate to get the most out of the strongest abilities out of all the heroes. If you want to grind the meta or rank up on your favorite heroes, use the link in the description to get access to a GameLeap membership. There are tons of courses and guides to help you improve faster and easier. Check it out and enjoy the video. First up, we have Ana. Even though Ana hasn't always been great, her ultimate has consistently been one of the best overall. It's a really simple effect, 50% more damage and 50% less damage taken. The damage reduction is a stronger effect, doubling your effective health. And now that the normal health is 250, you have to go through 500 HP on top of the pocket to take down a boosted DPS or support. It's always been good defensively, but after Season 9, it's even better, especially for your friendly healer when they get dived. Nanoing your Genji or Winston or even D.Va is great for ramping up the pressure on the enemy team. If they don't respond and your team pushes up with the nano, you definitely just win the fight. But not every team comp has a good target for pushing far. You can easily adapt to the situation, so as long as you're aware of what the enemy team can do, if they can dive hard and kill your allies, then you can instantly react with the defensive nano. The only problem with the proactive one is that enemies can kite. The nano doesn't have a speed boost like it used to way back, so it doesn't help your target push any further besides making them harder to kill. So a good team will fall back if they're ready for it, but once they've already committed, the nano will have a much higher impact. To be clear, both options are great. A nano boosted DPS with a pocket and anti-nade shortly after is tough to handle, so just make sure to watch the situation and pick your target depending on what the enemy team does. On to Amplification Matrix. Similar to Nano, it's also flexible between attacking and defending. Peeking a corner with a window or instantly reacting to enemy tank abilities are both equally effective. Either way, you'll want to use it early in the fight when you can, as soon as both teams are fully dedicated to winning. The most important thing for both options is positioning. Defensively, not every member on your team needs to use the Amp Matrix. Just you as Baptiste alone is enough to sustain your team and burst enemies who are trying to fight them, but that means you'll have to stick back a bit further than normal, instead of playing for a 5-man peak for maximum damage. If you need to make space for your team with the window, then it's definitely optimal to swing around a corner with it. And if the enemy team has abilities like Ramatra's Shield or Sigma's Grasp, you can use your excellent neutral spam to focus them down before engaging. Going first is good when your whole team pushes at the same time, but if your teammates don't have that coordination, take your time to set up. Selfishly using it for yourself is worth it, as long as you use that double healing to sustain your team while zoning out the enemy. Next we have Briggs Rally. Compared to the previous two ultimates, Rally is definitely better at matching and countering than for initiating the fight. She can still play like a tank against some heroes, and the armor and shield just amplify that playstyle even more. It's pretty much impossible to break her shield. It's only 700 HP, exactly as much as Sigma's shield, but with a lower regeneration rate. But even so, it's more than enough to protect you and your team from any follow-up damage after an ultimate engage. As for the stun, the best way to use it is once again to be patient. At the start of your ultimate, with full armor and full shield, you're already super difficult to deal with. So the stun is better saved for the middle of the rally, when the enemy team is struggling to stay up in the fight, and your stun will have more fight-winning impact. Look to cancel abilities like Sigma's Grasp or Queen's Carnage for maximum value. It's better to have one high-impact stun than two low-tier ones in the same rally. Moving on to Illari. She may have the most aggressive kill-focused ultimate out of all the supports, but it's not great for opening up the fight. Most of the time, the enemy team will have some way to block it or cleanse it, so mid-fight is when it really shines. And that fits really well with her playstyle, playing slow and poking from a flank or off angle and then launching the fireball when there's an opening. Being patient is really key, as long as you play for that 6-second debuff duration. Teams can use Sound Barrier or Immortality Field to keep themselves alive, but if you detonate the effect at the last moment, all their saving abilities will have run out. Because your targets are slowed by 40%, as much as Doomfist's Meteor Strike, it's a lot easier to hit the shots throughout the whole duration. You just have to make sure that your fireball hits, and then you just need 2 more shots on the targets affected to start an explosive chain reaction. Every once in a while, your shot will be blocked, but whenever you have time to poke down the enemy and wait for them to commit, you'll have a much better chance at getting multi-kills. Next up is Juno. Orbital Ray is definitely an opening ultimate. The laser area of effect moves forward, but it does so slowly. It's definitely not like Kitsune Rush, where you can chase enemies all the way to their spawn. The Orbital Ray travels less than 20 meters. It starts at 4 meters away from you, and then moves for only 16 meters before ending. Because of that, even teams without a speed boost can position around it. To deal with that, always look to start the ultimate on the objective. The damage boosting effects start immediately, but unless you're fighting on the point, the enemy team has no reason to fight you. It's a slow but steady ultimate, so while it's great to start with, you have to at least capture the point or defend it. Just going for kills with the boosted damage isn't reliable, although you can definitely bet on your long-range spamming heroes to get some picks at the start. Not every team will be good enough to just leave when you rev up the laser, but it's always a good habit to focus on winning the objective with your ultimates. It's just especially important for one that has such a slow start. Next up is one of the best ultimates of all time, Kiriko's Kitsune Rush. Although Juno's ult seemed like it could rival Kiriko's when it was first revealed, the rush is just too strong. The cooldown reduction is one of the best buffs in the game, period, and it lasts a little longer than 10 seconds with a 25-meter range. As a support ultimate that buffs allies, it could also benefit from being placed on the objective, but the extra speed boost means you can always catch enemies off guard. As the Kiriko, remember that you get massive value out of the extra healing fire rate. You can use the rush to start up a fight with increased fire rate and speed and mega buffed cooldowns for your team, but those effects also make the ultimate perfect for sustaining the team. You have more healing, a shorter Suzu cooldown, and since your healing tickets home in on your allies and most enemy bullets don't, even the speed boost helps your team avoid damage as you top them up. Going for crazy headshots is great. It's proactive and can really clutch up at times, but you absolutely don't want to let your team get low health. Even with boosted cooldowns, the ultimate doesn't heal allies up like Juno's does. As long as you balance your damage with insane healing during the engage, it's almost impossible to lose. Kitsune Rush's benefits can't even be countered by one ultimate alone, so use that to your advantage. Next up is Lifeweaver. As one of the few heroes with a structure ultimate, he's pretty easy to disengage from, but even if it's a top contender for the worst ultimates to start with, the instant value and sustain that it gives to your team is amazing. It goes without saying that it's an ideal counter to a lot of ultimates. The burst healing it gives counteracts a lot of the intense effects from some of the best ultimates in the game. As it's one of the best ultimates for matching others, it's also pretty simple to use. Only a select few heroes can deal with it easily, like Bastion or Mauga with their Gatling gun damage. The tree does get set on fire for maximum Mauga damage, so make sure to pressure him while he's breaking it down. The one thing you can do to make the ultimate better is the placement. Because the tree is so massive, you can block off chokes and flanks to your advantage. Even if your tree breaks, without the heroes like Bastion or Mauga, it'll take long enough to waste your enemy's time. So in order to secure key objectives like a push checkpoint or the last fight of a control round, you can just block off one of the flanks onto your backline. It's a pretty unique ability in that regard, so try to use it when it's viable. Now for Lucio's Sound Barrier. Tree of Life is good, but Sound Barrier is the ultimate counter. You just have to activate it without dying, of course. But in general, it's easy to counter ultimates with beat. What's really tough is using it aggressively, because only keeping it to counter can make it easy to hold onto it for too long. Pushing with beat is pretty risky. The best way to use it aggressively isn't by beating and speeding in, it's using it to sustain after speeding in. When you just beat and push, the shield benefit you get isn't that much. The overhealth starts draining instantly, and the first reaction to a beat coming towards your team is definitely to kite and wait it out. Try to bait the enemy team into committing to countering your normal push, and that's when you can use your beat to instantly gain a massive advantage. You're very unlikely to need Sound Barrier to get your team in safely, so you can delay the start of it as long as you can without letting anyone die, of course. Moving on to Mercy. Valkyrie is a pretty selfish ultimate, so all you have to focus on is the best timing. Although the team-wide damage boost can be pretty effective, it's pretty much a weaker orbital ray in that regard, so the value you're trying to get the most out of is the survivability. A Mercy and Valk just can't die unless you make a grave mistake. Try not to play too differently from normal though. You don't want to recklessly force your own Valkyrie when you don't need to, because again, the offensive value just isn't good enough. When the enemy team actually manages to start pressuring you, that's when you can get ready to fly off. And for the next 15 seconds, you'll be surviving and sustaining your team easily. Almost at the end of the list, we have Moira. At this point, Coalescence is equally good for engaging the enemy and countering their ultimates. The healing and damage numbers are just good enough to give your team a tremendous advantage no matter the situation. Just keep in mind that the beam heals way more than it damages. Twice the amount in fact. With that in mind, make sure that you prioritize keeping your team alive over DPSing, but you shouldn't be heal botting either. It's really important to use that piercing damage and 30-meter range to focus down targets that would otherwise be untouchable. And finally, we end on Zenyatta. Transcendence is clearly all about countering enemy ultimates. The healing amount is just so good that it feels like a waste to use in a normal situation, and because you can't deal any damage or even adjust your Discord orb in the trance, it's not great for creating an advantage. At the very least, make sure that you have a Discord target ready before you trance, and then use your invincibility to make sure that it stays attached for your team to focus. There are a lot of ways to cleanse the orb, but you'll still want to make sure that you force the enemy team to help their discorded ally while you give your team way more support in comparison. That's it for the best way to use every support ultimate. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.